Hello, everybody. This is Fabiola Escalon with the Rio Grande Current Substack, and I have the privilege this morning of interviewing Clayton Tucker, who is running for Texas Agriculture Commissioner. Really excited to have you here. Clayton, say hello to the folks.
Hey everyone, and thank you so much for having me today.
When you hear the title, you might think the Texas Agriculture Commissioner title. You might think it's just about farming, but really it's something that affects everyday Texans, whether we can afford to eat or whether our farmers can afford to keep farming. And Clayton's been talking a lot about what he calls an affordability crisis in Texas. He says food costs are too high, farmers are getting squeezed, and rural communities are being left behind. His message: we need real solutions, not political sideshows. So Clayton, thank you so much for being with us. Before we get into the big issues, I have to ask, why are you launching your campaign here in the Rio Grande Valley? What makes this region important to you and to Texas agriculture overall?
Well, one of the big reasons the RGV is so important because y'all ours is such a major breadbasket for Texas, for the United States, and for the world. When y'all grow some of the best products and other commodities here. And why we're launching here? Why are we here on this these next few days? Well, simple. This campaign is about the forgotten folks. And I mean, I hate to say it, but I know we all know it's true. But the RGV has been forgotten. It's been forgotten by the Democrats. It's also been forgotten largely by the Republicans as well. And that's just not the kind of campaign we're going to be running. We're going to be running a campaign that is out in the field, that is out meeting folks where they are, and it's talking about the issues folks really care about, not this left versus right thing, but this really going into the affordability crisis we are facing right now all across the United States.
One of the things that you mentioned just now is that Republicans have forgotten the valley too. I know that as a Democrat, we do feel left out. We were waiting for support, waiting to be heard, waiting to tell our narrative, right, of what's happening down here on the border and all the issues, because the Rio Grande Valley became the key issue in this last cycle, in this last presidential election. And many of that information was overly exaggerated, right? Are there issues? Yes. Do we want change? Yes. But the way they went about it and made us look that it was horrible and unlivable, people were afraid to come down and visit. My goodness, they really kept to the narrative, and Democrats didn't do anything about it. I'm talking about DC Democrats. So Republicans have gained ground. You just said that they have forgotten the RGV, or they have forgotten this.
Yeah, I would say they've forgotten this working folks in general.
Okay.
I do feel like the RGV is a little bit more up there. So, for instance, I come from the Texas Hill Country, and the Texas Hill Country has been forgotten. It's been a forgotten place for decades, for generations. Like, for instance, when they were first bringing electricity out to urban cities and even rural areas, they refused to even build roads, let alone like bring electricity. But it took a Democrat named LBJ to fight tooth and nail to say no, everyone's going to have electricity, and he got that passed. That's why the Hill Country has electricity. And for us in this campaign, it's no, everyone's going to afford to be able to eat food. Everyone's going to be able to afford a good education and a good healthcare, a good housing, and of course, it's being able to farm, where it's not just big ag, not just the big corporate monstrosities that are squeezing folks out.
Right. I think that when Republicans have been in office or in power, I don't see much progress. So, but the rhetoric, or what they're really good at is the rhetoric, the propaganda, the marketing. They really sell themselves well, and they make people believe. And they're using our social media tools, and they're buying off all the media. So they're the ones that are targeting people, and then they're the ones whose message is strongest. So yes, that's, I think,
I'm a
on my side, on my view, I think that's where Democrats have stayed behind. They just don't have a good game. But that's, and we're waiting for them. Like, come on.
Well, we're definitely planning to put a good game on ourselves. And yeah, I'm now convinced everything the Republicans accuse us of are the things they're actually doing.
They're
Perfect.
self-protecting.
Yeah, I mean, perfect example is they were just, the whole stop the steal. Well, what the hell is this gerrymandering thing? That is literally stealing elections. So maybe we
Exactly.
should start chanting stop the steal because that's what they're actually trying to do.
I like that, Clayton. I like that. Yes.
Use our own words against them.
All right. So on with the interview. The affordability crisis. You mentioned that. You said that in Texas, there's an affordability crisis. What's behind that? I would like for you to explain that term more. And what can the Agriculture Commissioner actually do to help bring food prices down for families?
Sure. So let me put it this way. I think everyone knows that over the last several years, food prices have just gotten ridiculous. Egg prices are up, meat prices are up, veggie prices are up, even processed food prices are up.
Wait, hold on. Hold on. I heard they were going to go down on day one.
Oh, well, unfortunately, that was some good old GOP propaganda yet again. And we might ask ourselves, well, why are they going down? Well, two quick stories about that. So let's talk about the egg affordability crisis. We had avian flu, which was a real deal. A lot of chickens died. But if you actually look at the global or the national supply of eggs, it was fine. It had a slight dip and then went right back. So this whole we have a shortage of eggs, that was just straight up propaganda. That was big egg, which I think is admittedly kind of funny to say. But they were literally price gouging. They made more money than they ever had. If you were a stockholder in Big Egg, you got the biggest dividends you have ever seen in your entire life. Meanwhile, working folks in the RGV, in the Hill Country, and elsewhere, I mean, mom and pop businesses they couldn't sell anything. It was just incredibly difficult. Now, if we look at what's going on elsewhere, it's the same story as these corporate monopolies, these shared monopolies, whether it's Tyson and Monsanto or Bayer and Monsanto or Tyson and JBL. They just have such control over our entire system that they're able to nickel and dime. Here's a really great example for you and your viewers. I raise cattle, right? And would say you go to the grocery store to buy 1 pound of beef or $1 of beef. We'll just make it simple. So for that $1 beef in the 1970s, I would have gotten around 40 to 50 cents of that dollar. Now for that $1 you buy today, I will get 7 to 14 cents. So it's just these middle corporations are just really price gouging everyone because they have a monopoly and they can do it. And that's what monopolists do.
So again, what can the Agriculture Commissioner do for the families, for the whole state, to lower the prices?
Well, hopefully I won't be the only blueberry in that strawberry pie up in the Capitol in Austin. If I'm the only blueberry there, that would be a little bit more difficult. So there's a number of things that we can do. First, really start popularizing and using the bullet pulpit of being anti-monopoly. We need as many anti-monopoly candidates. And I'll be frank about this, we need them on both sides of the aisle. Like I want there to be anti-monopoly Republicans, just to be fully clear about that, and really start popularizing that. Then we need to go for market reforms. We need to actually create a free market. Again, this is one of those things Republicans, they talk about free market all the time. They're not for the free market, they're for the monopoly market. They're bought and paid for. So we need to not just support folks getting into farming, not to support the folks who are already there through grants and loans, but actually create a fair market system where they can actually get their fair share of the
Clayton,
profits.
if I can interrupt you, do you think farmers understand this, the scheme of things with corporate? I'm talking in general too. Are they understanding why they're not getting their money's worth when they're selling their produce or when they're harvesting?
I will say most farmers and rural folks have a better understanding of monopolies than most city folks,
Mhm,
from
mhm.
my experience. However, most farmers and rural folks are much more scared to say anything. Here's a really great example. This wasn't quite Texas, but you can get the idea. There was a chicken farmer, he worked for Tyson. He spoke out against Tyson, and then suddenly all his chickens, Tyson, instead of sending him healthy chickens, were sending him sick chickens, and it drove him out of business. So there is very much retribution. So, if you talk too much smack, then you could be literally driven out of business. So while they're a lot more aware of it, they're also much more concerned because their livelihoods are literally on the line if they talk too
I
loudly.
I don't hear much about that. I think most people think that farmers are mostly Republicans, but I was hearing that about 40% of farmers, I'm hearing it from farmers themselves now that I'm doing this, uh, I guess, independent journalism. I'm hearing that about 40% of all farmers vote Democrat. They just don't talk
Yeah.
about it. Is that about correct? Does that sound right to you?
Um, I'm not quite sure. I would think that actually might be about right. What I'll say about most farmers I've talked to, are they socially conservative? Sure. I do think most farmers I know are socially conservative. Even on like the more democratic side, I wouldn't call them like conservative Democrats, but they're not like leading left Democrats socially.
Correct.
But
Correct.
on economics, every single one of them is very populist. They are economic populist, even the Republicans,
Wow, that's very
from
interesting.
most of the ones I've talked.
Very, very interesting. We just need to be educated some more. And this is why I love doing this work because I get to ask people about it. Um, and a lot of times, because there's so much polarization, people don't want to talk about it. But I ask questions. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? I ask young people, older people, I ask law enforcement, even everything where I see there's polarization, I ask teachers. Believe it or not, the way, again, this MAGAism, this whatever movement is happening, um, they villainize teachers. But when I go and talk to teachers, so many of them are supporters of the Republican Party or MAGAs, really. It's mind-boggling because again, they're being treated a certain way, but they support that party. It's really interesting to see that and to be finding things out. And so that's why I'm doing this reporting. I want people to hear about it, not just not just go along with what the party is saying or what the MAGAs or the extremists are saying. But anyway, I
Or the
digress.
propagandist.
Propagandists, yes. So let me continue. So farmers are definitely under pressure. A lot of small and mid-sized farmers feel like they're getting pushed out by the big corporations. If you win this race, what's your plan to keep Texas farmers on their land?
Oh boy. So we absolutely have to keep them. I think that's imperative that we have to keep farmers on their land. But we also need to make sure we can create a system where new farmers can get on. I've talked to a lot of young folks about my age, who want to get into farming and ranching, but you're talking way too much money.
Mhm.
Hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars to really get a setup going, and then just make pennies.
And
So,
also, well, land is very expensive,
mhm,
even dry land, right?
yeah.
There's land that doesn't produce much, or you would have to invest a lot for it to produce, and it's
Mhm,
already expensive to buy.
mhm. Like for me, I was fortunate because I'm the fourth generation on this particular property that on my family's ranch. We've had other ranches in the past, but on this particular one. So anyway, um,
How do we keep
we
them on their land? Or how do we get more people? Yeah.
we had a little bit of an ADHD moment there.
Yes.
But so again, it kind of comes down to creating the market. So right now we do have like a bunch of we had loans and grants. A lot of these loans and grants for farmers are being cut right now, both from the federal government, and what gets cut from the federal usually gets cut from the state as well. That's so we need to get those back, really help those out. We need fair market system where once you're in there, you can actually make a good, dignified income. And then others, we just need to be a lot more strict about these corporate farms. I mean, they play by entirely different rules. They've rewritten the rules. Sometimes the rules are easier on the corporate farmers than it is on the smaller guys. Here's like a really good example. This is related to meat. This is related to particularly the beef industry. There's two types of slaughterhouses: your corporate slaughterhouses and your custom slaughterhouses. To be used at the to like send your cows to a corporate one, you have to basically be corporate. Like they bottlenecked it right there. So like my family, we can't send our cattle there. We would have to sell our cattle to a middleman who then sells it to them. So we lose money on that deal.
Right.
The custom ones, well, we could send them there, but we send them there, then we can't sell them directly to y'all. We can't sell them to the consumers. Even though
Is that because of the laws or because of corporation?
the corporations have rewritten the laws to create bottlenecks throughout our system. They will claim it's about health and safety. Generally, it is not. Like, I want to be clear, for any rule that is legitimately about health and safety, I'm 100% all for it. But here's like a really good example: egg grading. Egg grading has nothing to do with health of the eggs. It is literally, is the egg pretty? If the egg is pretty, it gets a good grade. If it's not, so forth. But we create a system, though we just now recently changed this, where ungraded eggs could not be sold to mom and pop grocery stores or mom and pop restaurants. So there's like a lot of little choke points Big Ag has written into our rules that they'll say it's about health, but it's not.
Right. Oh my goodness, that is so right. I have come across some people that they have a lot of chickens and they can't sell to the grocery stores. And
we did recently pass a law, so things will be eased up a little bit, but we need to ease it up a lot more. I personally think we should be a lot more stringent on the big fellas than the little fellas. I think that's one way we can rebalance the system.
I think people would like to hear that. Absolutely. Farmers and ranchers. All right. On the topic of drought and, of course, water, water is such obviously a huge issue here in Texas. Recently, it's become a big issue here in the Valley. It's only going to get harder for farmers with drought and extreme heat. How would you help them adapt to those challenges?
Yes. So the topic of water and heat. So this is going to be a little bit of a complicated one. So the first thing we need to do is to conserve as much water as we humanly can. The more water we conserve, the less we pull out of our rivers, lakes, and aquifers. Because right now we're draining our aquifers at a very unsustainable rate. The easiest thing, this is so simple, it sounds stupid, but the easiest thing we can do for water is to fix all our leaky pipes, especially in the cities. The city of Austin is losing, if I remember right, like 9 billion gallons of water a year. That's several lakes worth. So most of our infrastructure is not doing great. The Biden administration actually released a lot of federal money to fix these things, and then, well, it got cut, or the Republicans just don't want to touch it, which is just asinine in my opinion. But
so that you would be fighting. So there's no money coming in anymore, or there is money. It got to Texas, but it's not going to be spent to fix leaky pipes, like you're saying, for example.
Here's a good example.
It was an infrastructure bill.
Yeah. So some of the money has been used, some of the money has been canceled, and some of the money, here's another really good example. So Kerrville, where the floods were, they got money that they could have used, for instance, for whether it was pipes or even an early flood warning system, but they decided to give it to the sheriff. So even when the money gets there, when there's no accountability measure set because the Republicans have removed the accountability measure, then never really know where it goes. But anyway, so first thing, conserve water, fixing leaky pipes would be the number one thing, I would say. From there, it's just educating farmers and helping farmers transition to more regenerative and sustainable forms of agriculture. Regenerative usually uses significantly less water and really helps water retention in the soil. So when it rains, more water goes into the soil and more water is held in the soil. So you don't have to water as much. That will be a slower process because we don't want to rush that. I mean, we don't want to do anything that accidentally hurts our food system. Like, needs to do little by little. Like, my family's transitioning to regenerative, and we're doing it basically section at a time. So,
Mhm.
so we don't accidentally,
What about
put the cart
changing
ahead
the
of the horse.
crops? Sorry, changing the crops. So I know recently
Uh,
the sugarcane in the valley was closed, but really that takes so much water.
we're probably going to have to change some crops around. For instance, I mean, even with my family in the hill country, the arid line. So 30 inches of water is the magic number. If you get 30 inches of water of rain per year, you're generally doing pretty all right. Right where the panhandle went straight up, that was the dividing line between less than 30 inches to the west and more than 30 inches to the east. That has went from that where the panhandle went up 120 miles to the east to where Fort Worth is. So I know a lot of ranchers in my area in particular have been switching from cattle to goats. Goats are much better for arid climates. So we're probably going to have to see some of that, including in various crops. So that is a distinct possibility. And if we do have to transition, we should, help with education and help with if new equipment's needed. Like, we should definitely give perhaps like very low interest loans
Right. Oh,
to the farmers and everyone else who has to change up their equipment.
that is great. That is great. So two things. I know, talking about federal monies coming to Texas, they get administered by the state, and a lot of people don't realize that. So they blame, for example, when there's the flooding down here in the valley or in the Houston area, there was this big flooding. It wasn't the last one, it was a previous one. And I know Monica de la Cruz kept saying that the monies were not here, or we needed money for the people that were suffering. They hadn't gotten assistance. But the money was stuck at the what's it called, the land grant, where does the money go? What is the office? The grant something geo. Anyway, so the money is stuck there. I didn't do my research. Well, I did the research, but it was a while back. So the money stuck there, and so they administer the money, and they never let it go. Then they still have it. From what I understand, they still have the money. So same thing for farming. I would believe if it came from the Biden administration, it's somewhere in there, but it's just not being used up, or it's not being administered properly. That's
If I remember right, I want to say 70 plus or minus percent of the ag department's budget is a pass through. It's just federal dollars passing through. And most of that's actually school meals, school lunches. So the number one responsibility of, if I were to be elected as ag commissioner, was just making sure kids don't go hungry in our schools.
wow.
So that's one of the things I like to joke, like, if you eat food, then you're a stakeholder in this race. This is the race for you, particularly if you also have kids in public schools, because I would be the one making sure that they actually have food, and ideally non-processed food.
So the Abbott administration just denied millions of dollars or billions of dollars for summer food program. Do you have the right number? I know I put it on my TikTok account, and it's still getting a lot of views. It's still getting a lot of negative reviews or negative comments on there. People are so upset that they would stop summer lunches for needy children.
Yeah, it's like 1 in 5 kids go to are food insecure. 1 in 5 don't have enough food. Yet the Abbott and the rest of them certainly don't mind giving billionaires more money.
Right, right, right. All right, moving on, moving on. I was going to ask you about rural communities. You've talked about wanting to strengthen rural communities. What do you see as their biggest need? And how can the agriculture commissioner help make a difference? I know that in Texas, there's a need for hospitals and more hospitals are closing down. There's less access to healthcare. But as an agriculture commissioner, how would you help them?
So as ag commissioner, I would actually run what's called the State Office of Rural Healthcare. We just basically make sure rural folks have access to healthcare. Texas is leading the nation in hospital closures. I want to say we've lost 23 or 27, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
And with Medicaid getting cut, I think another 17 are at risk. Here's a really, I don't want to say good example, it's a horrible example. So here's a really horrible example. So there are towns, particularly in East Texas, where if you are pregnant and you're going to have a baby, they only accept deliveries on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So if you're having your baby outside of Tuesday and Thursday, you have to drive 2 to 3 to 4 hours to your closest NICU. Now, if it's a high risk pregnancy, then you're just going to have to go to Houston, which could be, again, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours.
And very expensive.
Yeah. So we're seeing that, and also when these rural hospitals close, the ambulance systems and the paramedics go with them. So if you're out in your field and you get bit by a snake, you get kicked by a horse, you get hit by a cow, there's a tractor accident, there might be a paramedic to even come for you. Like you could call
Wow.
the hospital or call 911, and it might be 2 hours before they even get to you. So you're just asking people to die. I mean,
So the agriculture commissioner would handle that. There is, because agriculture is not just agriculture. I mean, you're talking about other things. You're talking about food, feeding, lunches, and healthcare.
Yeah, kind of like how we call the
Railroad.
Department of Oil and Gas the Railroad Commission. Well, this is like the Department of Farms, Food, and Rural Folks. We'll workshop the name later, but
Yeah.
it's because one of my responsibilities at rural healthcare is also rural economic development. Big thing I would want to focus on there. Again, this is simple. It sounds stupid, but it's just reliable cell phone coverage, reliable cell phone network. I mean, we talk about broadband, be awesome, but can I draw it from one town to another without losing cell phone signal? Without dropping a call. Like,
Yes.
I would love a universal broadband. We need it. But can we get the basics down first of can I at least make a phone call or send a text message no matter where I am?
I know that even for schools, right?
Mm-hmm.
Students need it. And for your
Oh
business,
yeah.
you need it for your business as well.
Mm-hmm. For business, for banking, for government services, I mean, it's at this point, in my opinion, internet needs to be treated like a public utility, just like we treat water or electricity. It just needs to be guaranteed.
Guaranteed that it works when you need it. I know that Monica de la Cruz, our representative here, District 15, she voted to reduce subsidies for families that receive subsidies for internet use. So a lot of families were left out that needed. I know I have friends that said, I'm a single mom. That subsidy was helpful because I have 2 children. And now I have to go to McDonald's to go to a friend's house, or they stay later at school so they can use the internet. So instead of helping people, they're voting against.
Yeah. This is kind of circles back to the affordability crisis. Because that is when I say we are the forgotten people, that's what we're talking about. Because again, when a billionaire wants something, they get it instantaneously. But it's hey, I'm a working mom, I'm a working parent. Can I have help paying for my internet bill? And then they tell us to buzz off.
That's right. That's right. Okay. And they always blame They always blame the Democrats for wanting to cut, for not wanting to help the working
Yeah.
people. And I think it's the opposite. I see the votes, it's in their votes, it's the opposite. So moving on. So beyond politics, you've said current leadership is too focused on political fights instead of real issues. And so if you're elected, how do you keep the focus on practical solutions? And what's your message to people who feel burned out by politics? Because you and I have been talking about, the other side saying this, and they're saying this, and they're saying that. How do we depolarize this this thing that we're experiencing right now?
Yeah. Oh boy, I have a lot of thoughts on this. I don't know if any of them are really good. So this whole culture war, to me, it's all manufactured, left versus right. Like it's literally just a giant distraction for us to fight each other. And I think there are people who are actively trying to undermine our democracy, trying to undermine our country, because in my mind, they want to turn us into a dictatorship, maybe a techno-fascist dictatorship, maybe the Fourth Reich, whatever they want to turn it into. None of it's going to be good for us. And part of that is going to be social media companies. Like if you look what these folks run on, they run on hate. I mean, hell, even Peter Thiel, the co-founder of PayPal, basically, if you ever listen to, I would never recommend anyone listen to anything Peter ever says. But like he actively says, the United States should not be a democracy. It should not be a republic. It should just be a dictatorship by a CEO.
Wow,
These
he
folks
literally said that.
Yeah, these folks are legitimately out of their goddamn minds. And they're my inner, I call it my inner Uncle Mike, is my inner conspiracy theorist, really does think that they're trying to get the left and the right, the liberals and conservatives and moderates, to fight amongst ourselves so they can just continue pillaging everything in our government, everything from our society. And they're doing it in such a way where eventually people lose faith. They lose faith in a government that works. They lose faith in democracy. They lose faith in being a republic. So then they try something different. It was George Washington, like kind of later on in the second half of his term, he realized the one thing that could be a bigger threat to freedom is not just a government that's too strong, but also a government that becomes too weak. Because when a government's too weak to protect folks, to make sure that there's no affordability crisis, then the people will turn towards kings or queens or whatnot. And I mean, just everything we're seeing, it makes me really wonder, like, is that what they're trying to do to us?
I think we're already there. I think we're, and I don't know if we're at the point of no return. I hope that we are. I'm fighting for it. I'm resisting. A lot of us are. Here in the Valley, we're seeing a lot of people joining protests and joining organizations and asking, what can I do to help? What can I do? What can I do? I think that sleeping giant here in the Valley of people that don't vote, I think they're finally waking up. So again, that's another thing. Here in the Valley, people don't vote. And then there's this gerrymandering. They're silencing our votes even more. So I'm pretty sure it's going to pass, this gerrymandered, where they're turning the districts more Republican. They're swinging more Republican. But we can beat it if we vote. So thank you so much for teaching us, schooling us. You're really good in explaining things. Is there a reason why you're so good at it?
I am a former teacher. I was a kindergarten teacher in my pre-political life, 15 boys, 5 girls, pure mayhem. So it was a wild time.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. And welcome to the Valley. I don't know where you're at. I know you're coming down here. We're very excited.
Yeah.
I
just got to, I think this is technically McAllen. I have a couple of events near McAllen, and then I think there's one in San Juan right afterwards.
Well, do let us know where in McAllen. So I'm about to post this so they can catch you.
I would recommend going to my website, this ClaytonTuckerTX.com. and all links and information will be there.
All right, Clayton, thank you so much for the conversation. I wish you luck. Welcome to the Valley. And make sure you make some time to go to good places. Have people
Oh, yeah.
recommend them to you. There's a lot to see here. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank y'all so much.
Bye-bye.